We have Sue Godwin, and when Nancy was talking about her blue, I have a term, I call it Sue Blue.
Yeah, that's kind of become a thing.
That's kind of become a thing, the Sue Blue. All right. Sue Godwin, McPherson, Kansas, we're handing it over to talk about her Cloud series.
Thank you. Yeah, I am typically a landscape artist, but I've always been fascinated with clouds. Since I was really little, my dad always watched the skies, and I just kind of picked up on that. And so in the last few years, when we've been traveling, especially by air, if I see something interesting out the window, I'll take photos and I will jot down some notes. And so I have this collection of images, and it just seemed like a good time to do that, to kind of step away from the landscapes and focus on the sky. So I've titled this little collection Above the Clouds. And each one is from, different time of day, different trips, but it's really the images that struck me. So I'm an acrylic artist. Kind of came by that simply from the fact that my mom, when I was in middle school, she was taking college classes. She was a lifelong learner about art and different styles and mediums, and she was doing acrylic, so did I. And my high school art teacher, Al Masig, hey Al, I know you're there.
Hi Sue, fine series here today.
Oh, thanks Al. He was wonderful because we were allowed to just kind of explore and do pretty much whatever medium. I mean, he would give an assignment, but we could do our own take on it. And so between my mom and Al, I had a lot of encouragement, and really struck with the acrylic paint, partly because my studio's in our home, so no fumes. And I like the feel of it. I'm impressed by oil painters like Lisa Grossman. To me, oil paint is so slick, I wouldn't know what to do with it. But I enjoy acrylics, and I feel like I can get a lot of different colors and textures, and it's really enjoyable. I do an undertone typically. A lot of times in skies, it'll be a pale yellow undertone, because as my mom always said, grass isn't just green, sky isn't just blue. If you look along the horizon, a lot of times you'll see that yellow tone. And it was like that even on this morning flight, where we were flying really early out of Knoxville, and it was a really heavy cloud deck, so it was dark. Didn't see the sunrise until we got up through the clouds, and there it was. And I don't know that you can really tell, but there are a lot of layers, thin layers. I tend to use thin layers using Liquitex gel medium that gives a translucency, and the Liquitex liquid that Nancy was talking about is airbrush medium. And yes, I use it as well because it keeps the adhesion of the paint in the thin layers that water will not allow. So anyway, there's probably at least anywhere from 5 to 8, 10 layers of color that are throughout the painting. Let's see, moving on. Shall we move on? So this lovely little one, I was just struck by being above the clouds, and yet there were clouds above the clouds. It's titled Transition for a couple reasons. First off, the clouds, the cumulus clouds are on the lower deck, but then it transitions upward to the cirrocumulus. And I just really was fascinated to see clouds above clouds. And it was a transition. I had actually, as far as order of how these were painted, this above the sunrise was first, and then the samba was next. And then I dropped down to this little one, so it was a kind of a harsh transition, but it was a transition nonetheless. Shall I continue? All right. We've arrived at Summer Samba, which is the largest canvas I've done at 36 by 48. And I do enjoy painting all the way around, continuing the image on all sides, especially with this series, because when they're on the wall, I mean, you guys at home don't get to see this, but when they're on the wall, it's almost like the clouds are floating because you see the whole image. But this is over Lake Michigan. I was on a flight from Traverse City, Michigan, down to Chicago. So this is the western shoreline of Michigan. And seeing it from above is really spectacular because you'll have these just beautiful aquas along the shoreline, but then you get almost black deep water. So it's a really nice contrast. And I remember at least when we left in Traverse City, it was a pretty warm day for up there. And so I imagine just the heat was building and building and creating these cumulus clouds that literally would kind of like join together. You'd see them starting off as just a little wisp, and then it was almost like they got sucked up into the atmosphere. And I really wanted to capture that. And there's a lot of different colors. Clouds are not just white. There are so many colors that make up any given clouds, depending on atmosphere, depending on time of day, wind conditions. So this was really, it was a challenge to paint because of size for me, but it was also a joy because it allowed me to do some things I hadn't done before. Okay, and now we're at Ascending to New Heights. This painting really, at this point, this was actually the last of the 5 that I painted, and I was determined that I was going to kind of loosen up, which for me is a challenge. I'm still working on that. I will conquer it, but right now, this one I'm really, really pleased with, in that I listened to that voice of my mom and her art teacher, Julia Roker, and Al, just to stop, just let it go. You're there in that spot. Don't put any more paint there. Alan?
Yes, and Al,
Yes.
your teacher,
Yes.
has a question about what is it about big skies and distant views that interests you so much?
Oh, Alan. All right. Al wants to know, what is it about big skies and distant views that interest me so much? It's always fascinated me. And I think a lot of that has to do with my dad. He was an architect, but he was a photographer, and he was always looking across the lands. Like, even when he was driving, he was constantly looking around, you know. you look up the road now and then too. But so it was just, I can't really explain it. It's just something that I don't really need to see what's right 3 feet in front of me. I enjoy, and especially out here. I'm born and raised in Michigan, and had heard Kansas was a flyover state, and the other ladies have talked about that. But I'm here to tell you, it is not a flyover state. It is, I know Wyoming's thing is the land of big sky or something like that, but you could say that about Kansas too. It's always different. It feels different. It smells different, different seasons. The clouds, there's different moisture in the air, and that just changes everything. It changes the atmosphere, what you can see, how far you can see, and the colors that you see from what's right in front of you to off in the distance. So hopefully that answered your question. Okay.
You didn't say it didn't.
Okay. A thumbs up?
Thumbs up.
Okay. But anyway, this cloud form, we were flying, I think this was also out of Knoxville. We'd gotten like about halfway home, and the pilot was having to kind of reroute a bit and get around and above this cloud formation. Thing was, it kept building too. So for a couple of reasons, this is titled Ascending to New Heights, which quite literally we were doing. But it was fascinating to me looking out the window to see those clouds just literally changing before my eyes. And I wrote that down in my notes, that it wasn't stationary. It just kept changing. So this is just one moment in what I saw. And here we have sunset above, lights below, which I felt compelled. Sometimes I'm not quite so literal with my titles, but in this case, we were flying back from Naples, so this is actually the Atlanta to Wichita leg, and I tend to fall asleep after takeoff for a little bit, and woke up. I'm not 100% sure where we were. I think probably over Arkansas, but what I do know is this gorgeous sunset was happening, and I was so glad that I woke up when I did, because I've never seen a wedge like this, and with it being carried around that canvas, you really see it, and it just really struck me how vibrant it was. I think once you get at a certain atmosphere, it must kind of just clear out the clutter, and sometimes those colors are just so vibrant. But then there was this little thin layer of wispiness, and the ground formations were kind of rolling, and then right below was a little town with some lights, and that was all there was. I mean, there was no other town to be seen for quite a ways. And so it is literally sunset above, lights below. And again, it's a lot of thin layers to it. The blues that I use Prussian a lot. I'll use some cerulean, some what Liquitex labels as brilliant blue. It must be, their own little thing. But I use Liquitex pretty much exclusively, the heavy body Liquitex, because I can always thin it with the airbrush medium. To me, it's harder to try to make it thicker. And I like their pigment load. But there again, I started with Liquitex when I was in middle school. when it had that really horrible color shift, and you weren't always sure what you were getting when you put it on wet, what it was going to be dry. But it's come a long way, and I really enjoy it.
And Sue, you're going to be talking about that some more.
Yes, I will be doing a demo here September 11th. Kind of ominous, but we'll get over that. So I'm looking forward to it, talking about working with acrylics. It will be an actual landscape rather than the cloud series. So I'm really looking forward to that, and getting to meet other artists who are interested in that. What? See, these guys can see the questions before I hear them. So.
To know how influential Stella is.
Oh my God, Stella. Okay.
Who is Stella?
Stella is our very sweet 1.5-year-old pit mix rescue from Lawrence Humane Society. She's absolutely adorable. You know, I'm not prejudiced or anything. But she, when I've been painting for what she deems too long, and she is great in the studio. She has her bed, she has her blanket, toys. But when it's been too long and she really wants to play, she will drop a toy in my lap or just tease me with the toy, but she wants me to throw it. So I have this very narrow window when I'm working on paintings this size. It's not such a problem with the smaller ones, but with like the Samba, there's a very narrow space between the angle where I'm at and getting it through the studio door, the toy, through the studio door and up the stairs. And she wants me to throw her toy. Or if she is tired of being in the studio and she's over playing Chase the Toys, she will literally jump up, paws up on my lap, like, okay, let's go. We need a walk. And usually she's right. She can kind of tell that, you know, I've been at the canvas a while and I need to take a break. So, yeah.
Dogs are very special.
Yes, and we've had several dogs, and they've all been a part of the studio, all each in their own way. So.
No more questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Strucker Nelson Wells. Thank you, Alan and Amy and Kevin and Mary. Really appreciate it.